video. It's themustardseed.us. Go to the homepage, click at the bottom of the homepage to YouTube. You can watch a bunch of different YouTubes. Then you can go across, click on education. And then there's from videos to downloads to other things that you can get there. Then you can go to Facebook, just Facebook.com/mustardseedtn. Just mustard seed TN. And usually once a week I'll do some. I like to do it on Wednesdays, but I'll have fire calls and I'll have whatever. And by Friday, I usually always have it done by Friday. But you can go back and listen to them. My goal is no more than 20 minutes. This week was 8 minutes. Last week was 20-something minutes, but my goal is less than 15, I'm sorry, less than 15. And you can go back and listen to them over a year. And it's just 1 minute lives on there. And sorry, another fire. I got a house fire. I think I'll have a bad response time. Yeah. Yep. We had I don't even think I'll make it there for overhaul. We had a bad wreck this morning. That's where you can find it, YouTube, or you can go to YouTube and look up Walk Cross maybe. Or you can go to another great one. This is a great one y'all enjoy. This is really good. My buddy, who's the guy who is the gastroenterologist, this is pretty cool. What he'll do is when you go to him and you have problems with Crohn's or whatever, and he writes these things out, and then he says, I want you to go and watch this guy at Amazing Discoveries. And he says, it's Walk Cross. Well, that's me. And they can watch this kind of stuff, and he wants them to learn this stuff. And then there's another real good guy on there that does even more, and his name's Walter Vythe. And he's got some real good things on health, and he'd be a real good one to watch. So you can go to Amazing Discoveries, and you can find me on there also. So this one's on Amazing Discoveries. The last one's on Amazing Discoveries, and actually the church service was on Amazing Discoveries. Yeah, all three of it are on Amazing Discoveries. So anything else there? Okay, great. So weight loss. Weight loss can be perceptive. Had a guy come into me not long ago. Doctor told him he needed to lose weight. And the doctor told him, he said, well, said you need to lose weight. And the guy said, well, I look like everybody else around me. And the doctor said, well, maybe you need to start looking at some different people. I know a family. Father's rather large. Wife's rather large. One boy's ideal body weight. The other boy's rather large, looks just like his daddy. The parents tell the boy whose ideal body weight that they don't say he's the ugly duckling, but they treat him like he's the ugly duckling. They tell him that he is not healthy. He needs to gain weight like his brother and like his daddy. Because in their eyes, that's healthy. Sometimes we live in a box. We look around the box around us and we go, well, I guess I'm normal. And sometimes we have to get out of the box, whether it could be management. Just because that's the way they do it in your town may not be the best way to do it, because that's just the way everybody in that town does it. And they don't know any other way in management. Sometimes we have to get out and look around and see what else is out there. Look at some science. When I travel, yesterday I flew into Charlotte. Now, Charlotte has a lot of folks from different parts of the country, but especially if I go to Atlanta or if I go to smaller airports, folks in the South look a lot the same. But I tell you, when I fly to California, you see that, don't you? Y'all, when you fly to California or fly to Portland Oregon or Seattle, people look different out there. Why? They are different. I haven't heard a thing out of him today until now. They are different. But you know, it's amazing. It's easy to stereotype people. I was in Seattle speaking several years ago, speaking on health, and people had told me, do not include religion. It has shut them off. They told me, the presenters. And sometimes you're speaking for folks and say, don't you say nothing about this. But you know what? Sometimes God tells you to do something. Who do you listen to? So who do you listen to? Do you listen to God? Yes. And so I did weave in some, not as much as I have here, but I did weave it in. And do you know, literally, I had a line when I finished, further than from here, them doors, people want to talk to me, not about their health, but thanking me for talking about spiritual things. And them where I would think, and folks would just think from around here, they're different. But even out there, there's people who starve them for God. They really are. So what was I getting ready to say to start with? I plumb got off.
They look different.
Yes, look different. Yes. And so when you want to look around, when you look at weight, you can look at body mass index. I don't know, Don, if you saw me put something up maybe a month ago, 2 months ago, and someone I knew in high school blew me out of the water because I put a BMI chart up. 2 people did. Someone asked for a copy of a BMI chart. I put it up, and I think it was Mayo. It was either Cleveland Clinic or Mayo that I put up, just a BMI chart, and it was offensive. A BMI chart was offensive. And this person works in healthcare at a big institution. I'm thinking. There are oversensitivities out there today. So you have a couple of choices. You can look at the body mass index, and that's what most regular healthcare uses, body mass index. And they look at your height, they look at your weight, or they look at these numbers and, like 23, 24, and they look at your height and they see where you are and what you need to do. I had this guy. This guy looked like a bull. I mean, a bull. And I mean, you couldn't, he was literally, when I did a BMI on him, he was 65 years old. He broke the Guinness Book of Records every year, at least once, of his own numbers. He was the best in the world in martial arts for breaking things with his hands, whether it was blocks or wood or concrete, whatever. This man was the best. He was a PhD in, guess what? Theology. He was over in Seville. He would go to Indonesia. He would go to Malaysia. He would go to China and talk about Jesus. And you can't proselytize there, as you know. But he could, because he was the best in the world in that area of martial arts, and they left him alone. But this guy, when he would come in and see me for health issues, and when I looked at the BMI at his height, he was not even on the chart. He was that heavy. But when you go up to him and pinch him, there was no fat on this man. It was muscle. The BMI is not accurate for that. That is why sports medicine doesn't usually use BMI. They use something called percent body fat. Now, used to, you would have to dunk somebody into a cylinder to have, actual accurate percent body fat. But now and then we started taking these little things and clipping on to right here and whatever. Well, people are so touchy anymore. Don't touch me, I'll sue you kind of stuff. And so I don't want to touch people maybe. And so that we don't do that anymore. You have these things you can step on and it runs this current through you, or you can hang on. And you can go to your gym I'm sure your gym here in Dodge Center, if y'all have a gym, has one of these machines. You can buy them at Walmart for like $35, $40. And it will tell you what your percent body fat is. I personally believe that is more accurate. It's a whole lot easier to work with because you'll have a person comes and they'll say, and I'll say, well, you need to be here based on the BMI. Well, I'm big boned. Well, you don't even have to deal with that. That the percent body fat takes care of that. And so if you want to check that, and that will tell you where you need to be. People say, I ain't look, they'll say, well, I hadn't looked like that since I was in high school. You're probably unhealthy when you're in high school. I don't want to look like that because everybody would tell me I look scrawny. So do you want your diabetes? You're about to go on dialysis. Which would you rather, dialysis or have your friends tell you you're scrawny? I'd go scrawny. And so as you look at what the medical profession uses, just go down the road a couple miles to Mayo Clinic. I promise you they use the BMI, body mass index at least. And that's what your doctor there, what you said, 2,000 doctors? I'd say the majority of those doctors are going to say the BMI. Pardon? You work there, yes? Okay. So that is a valid tool. And so take a look at that. But I'd have to lose 200 pounds. Is that possible? Yes. I met a lady at Duke University. Again, another very good institution. She lost 200 pounds using the Duke program that we talked about last night. It took over 2 years. That's okay. I mean, she was in her, I'm trying to remember how old that lady was. She was in her probably 50s. She had time to lose it. And so a couple of years is nothing to lose 200 pounds. And so you don't want to lose weight super fast. You want to exercise when you're losing weight. You want to keep that tone. You don't want to, if you lose it too fast, one, it's unhealthy to the organs. But the other is if you're exercising with that and you're slowly losing it, the body kind of shrinks along more normally with that. And so you can have people who can lose weight and slowly and they look good. People will tell me, no, I don't want to have surgery where you have to cut that stuff off. Well, again, let's look at what you're dealing with here. You're getting ready, you're losing your eyes, your eyesight's going. You're getting ready to go on dialysis, or you're getting ready to lose your feet, or, you're in, cardiac failure. Which would you rather? You just have to look at what's the most acuity, what's the worst thing, and then make a decision. But how do you make that decision? Yes, do your due diligence. Do your due diligence. But I encourage you to pray and ask God what you need to do. That's very important. And people say, well, that's just too basic. That is way too basic. We got to be more scientific than asking God. God's the guy who created science, y'all. And ask him what you need to do. Do you go to him when you buy a car and ask and pray about it? Do you go to God when you're going to buy a house? Do you go to God when you're going to look at an occupation? Yes. We'll talk to him about your health. It's smart. People tell me, but I don't, God's a very busy man. And, he's got the world problems to deal with. And I just got these little problems here and I don't want to bother him. When your child has a problem, do you want them to come talk to you? Y'all got children? But would you want them to? Absolutely. And so God wants us to go to him when there's problems and ask him what he'd have you to do. I believe that God would want you to be healthy in the ideal body weight. Again, it's not our bodies anyway, it's his. Ask him what he wants to happen to his body and what you need to do to make that happen. Okay, so let's look at a few things. More than $6 billion is spent each year on diets and weight loss products in the United States. What could we do with $6 billion besides give it to other people? Statistically, 3 decades ago, the obesity rate in the United States for adults was 15%. Today, the rate is more than doubled, 35%. At the same time, calories consumed by adults have gone from 1996 to 2234 a day. I just finished a book. It's a really good book by a guy that wrote back in as a physician that wrote a medical book back in the early 1900s. And what he prescribed to his patients was, don't eat until you're full. Eat to what it takes to run your body. He says, we think we have to eat until we're full. And one of the problems is people do not take time to chew. And so they scarf the food down. And we know that it takes a while for the body to identify, okay, now we're starting to get full. So if you eat a little slower, chew that food, one, you're chewing it up good, you're eating it slow, your body then, the timing lets you know, I'm full, I can stop. Now, I was raised to eat everything on the plate. If you didn't, you got to eat it the next meal. Y'all don't know if any of y'all ever did that, but that's what happened to me. It's what I did to my kids. And so you learn to portion appropriately. And so put a little on the plate. If you're hungry, get a little bit more. Don't fill your plate plumb full up to here and think you got to eat it all. Well, I just got to eat it because it's on the plate and I don't want to waste it. Don't stick it on there to start with that much. And just eat what you need, what this doctor said. It made sense. It made sense. Obesity-related conditions include heart disease, stroke, type 2 diabetes, and certain types of cancer. These are some of the leading causes of preventable death. It is estimated annual healthcare cost of obesity rating. It is estimated annual healthcare cost of obesity-related illnesses are $192.2 billion. Here we saw what we're spending on just programs. Well, what's the actual cost? $192.2 billion, or nearly 21% of the annual medical spending in the United States, based on being overweight. I looked at a picture not long ago, the little town I'm in. I thought I brought some eye drops with me. I must not have. My contact's getting dry. Nope, I left it. I saw a picture in our local newspaper in Newport, Tennessee, and it was in the mid-1960s. And it was a senior class. And I looked at that picture, and then I compared it to the senior class right now. One person was just barely out of ideal body weight. One person was just barely outside of ideal body weight. And everybody else was in ideal body weight. Have we, as those of us that have been around a little longer and those that have been longer than us, were people a different size when you were young? More in ideal body weight? Yes, they were. Obesity-related job absenteeism costs $4.3 billion annually, and obese people spend 42% more on healthcare costs than healthy weight people. African Americans have the highest age-adjusted rates of obesity, 47.8, followed by Hispanic at 42.5, Caucasians 32.6, and Asians at 10.8. Help us out here, Donna. You have a little more experience with folks from Asia. Why do you see Asians not as heavy as us?
Diet.
The diet. I was approached a number of years ago to go to Asia and speak to a country on lifestyle health and train their what we would call equal to our health department here in America. And so I asked them in their major city was Kuala Lumpur. And I said, what are your major diseases in Kuala Lumpur? There's diabetes, hypertension, hypercholesterolemia, high cholesterol, just syndrome X, what we deal with here. that we've been talking about today. And I said, what do y'all eat in Kuala Lumpur? And they said, priority number one, Wendy's. And then it went to McDonald's, Pizza Hut, American fast food. And I said, in rural of your country, what are their diseases? And they said it is infections. What do they eat? They said fruits, vegetables, some fish. And I said, in Kuala Lumpur, prior to American fast food, what were the diseases? They said infections. I said, what do they eat? Fruits, vegetables, and some fish. When I go to Africa, I can tell you, in Kigali, we're starting to see obesity issues. We're seeing hypertension issues. We're seeing stroke issues. We're seeing the typical syndrome X. And as I go into rural Rwanda, I don't see that. Those men are amazing there. They can take a bicycle and they can have a load of bananas. They're almost up to that light. And they're walking it up hills and down hills. It might be bananas. It might be a stack of wood. It might be whatever. But they're skinny like you. But they're muscular. Their endurance is amazing. But guess what they eat out in the country versus in Kigali? Oh, thank you, sir. So I believe our diet in America has changed. Has it changed since you were a boy? And so going back in my home state of Tennessee, I tell these stories because I want to put some real to it. My home state is Tennessee. In 1969, we were the 4th healthiest state. When Donna and I were what, 8, 9 years old? We were the 4th healthiest state in the United States. Did you know that?
That healthy.
We were 4th healthiest state, according to Nashville. In 2009, we were the 4th unhealthiest state. Why? Nashville took a look at it. Tennessee Department of Health. In 1969, when we went out to eat, we went to Grandma's house. I was going out to eat. We didn't go out to eat. Couldn't afford it. And you just didn't have the accessibility. Number one was what people eat, 1969 to 2009. Number two, what we drank. If you drank a soft drink, you didn't get it very often, but it was about this big. It's a little old thing. People go out today and they go to a restaurant, they get a gulp, or a gas station and get a gulp. It's some 40 some ounces, and then they refill. Number three, exercise. In 1969, I was riding my bicycle to school. As I said before, if I was bad, I was walking. Daddy regulated that. And I was exercising. We had recess. We had chores at home. We exercised. In 2009, kids were not exercising. In 2009, there were schools in Tennessee, that the kids had no exercise during school unless you were part of some sports program. And get this one, the last one.
Says this.
Okay.
That work for your.
What is it? Just a.
Yeah, it's just a eye drop.
Oh, great. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Kelly had it.
Great. I can make that work. Oh yeah, my eye says thank you. That contact dried out. But guess what number 4 was? It was nutrition, but a different thing than we think of nutrition. Can you guess what it is? Mamas? No. Nutrition. Nursing babies. 2009, we were nursing more, 1969, we were nursing more babies than in 2009. 2009, I was having people come in my store, girls that had babies with croup, with colic. And usually that's most of the time you can fix that by just nursing the baby. And I'd say, do you nurse that baby? No, that's gross. My girlfriends say that's not cool. Or no, I don't want to be bothered with that. Nursing is huge to the nutrition of that baby. It's huge to the fact of bone structure. It's huge to the immune system. It's huge to digestive. And now they're finding that even cardiac health years later can depend on nursing. Nursing's huge. Also, we're finding that even IQ can be affected by, this is it. You want to learn something cool? This is really cool. So who knows Dr. George Fletches? Anybody know Dr. George Fletches? Jorge Fletches. He did some research, found, and now Germany is testing this, and they're finding that the same thing, but they're even using more. He found that it can increase the child's IQ 10 to 15 points higher than the mother's IQ. And that's cool, isn't it? Well, I had an opportunity to tell a guy over, he was an ambassador over in Kigali, and his daughter happens to be the president's secretary. And he put it in his book that he just wrote on brain health for kids. Hopefully we're going to see some changes on that. But here's what it is. To increase the child's IQ 10 to 15 points above the mother's IQ. Oh, thank you, sir. Boy. Iodine, 12.5 milligrams of iodine. In Japan, the average female consumes 13.7 milligrams of iodine. 13.7. In America, average female consumes 0.125 milligrams of iodine. Significantly lowers the female's chances, probability of breast cancer, significantly, and tender breast syndrome. But then they found that if the mother will take 12.5 milligrams of iodine, especially in the first 2 trimesters of childbirth, the pregnancy, but if they can take it full pregnancy and then nurse 2 years at 12.5, well, let me back up. 12.5 milligrams during pregnancy, and then go to 25 milligrams when nursing for 2 years. That's what they're finding. Germany is doing 25 milligrams during pregnancy, 50 milligrams during the nursing, and their IQ findings are even higher. Now, we know that the CDC knows this because they've told women to not use fluoride during pregnancy. Why? Fluoride, chlorine, and bromide inhibit the body's absorption of iodine. Then that affects the baby's IQ. And so they've identified fluoride effects in mental health. They just need to drop the chlorine and the bromide. Bromide is just dough enhancer, a dough preservative. It's in soft drinks and all that kinds of things. But isn't that cool? Just using iodine, 12.5 milligrams, can increase that child's IQ. Not to mention what it can do for breast cancer, tender breast syndrome. It's huge. Okay, got off on a trail there, sorry. There is no significant relationship between obesity and education among men. Among women, however, there is a trend. Those with college degrees are less likely to be obese compared to less educated women. Isn't that interesting? Y'all just think different than we do. We knew that. Higher income women are less likely to be obese than lower income women. The United States is 8th fattest country in the world, with 31.8% of the population being overweight. The top 3 fattest countries are, and I'm just quoting these guys, I'm not saying it myself. The top 3 fattest countries are Egypt with 33.6, Saudi Arabia 35.2, and Kuwait at 42.8. Those are the top 3. The fattest states in the United States are Delaware, 34.3, West Virginia, 34.4, and Mississippi, 35.4. I was surprised at Delaware. I was not surprised with West Virginia and Mississippi, just because our southern diets are not that healthy. Again, we fry everything, and that oil is not good for weight control. 68% of United States adults are overweight or obese. Journal of the American Medical Association. 1/3, 33% of all women and 1/4 of all men in the United States are on a diet. Colorado University. Up to 2/3 of those on a diet regain more weight than when they started. So what's the problem? Well, so if you're going to do a diet, you need to go into it with knowledge, smart, or you could end up being bigger than you were when you started. Why don't short-term diets work? As weight loss programs, diets don't work. People lose weight, but about 95% of the people who lose weight by short-term dieting will regain it in 1 to 5 years. The deprivation of restricted diets can lead to a diet overeat or diet binge cycle. That's from Psychology Today. Have you ever been there? Have you ever gone on a diet? When you finish, you go, I can finally eat, and you just start wolfing the food down. It happens. Yeah. Psychology Today reports it. Lifestyle change needs to be strategic. They need a plan that is progressive and evaluates itself for corrections. And that goes back to what we talked about last night. And we'll talk about that. We looked last night, what is your mission? When you want to lose weight, or when you set a goal, it is not a good goal to say, I want to lose weight. It needs to be, it needs to be measurable. If you want to produce more bushels of corn per acre, you want to identify, I want X amount instead of Y amount in a certain amount of time. And here's how I'm going to do it. Weight loss is not a direct drop. It's a bell curve. You actually can lose more at first, so it kind of flattens out. You can get stuck on what Dr. Thrash called the stairs. You can get stuck on the stairs. So as you're losing weight, she says it's like going on steps. And sometimes as you get stuck on a step, you can't lose anymore. And you got to figure how to get off that step. I was at Duke one time. And at Duke, when you go to them for this program, you're spending $13,000 plus a gym, plus a hotel fee on your first visit. And you go in at 7 in the morning. You weigh yourself. You go sit down. The nurse draws if you're diabetic, she does a glucose. She'll take your blood pressure, take your pulse, plugs in the computer. You're standing in this line that is here to the wall from the door, waiting on to talk to the doctor or doctors, depends on how many's there that day, 1 or 2. And you come up and you say, and he says, Henry, let's see here. You ain't lost any weight in 3 days. Let's see, you're walking 5 miles a day. I want you to walk 8 miles a day. Next. That's it. Well, why is he doing that? See, losing weight is like money. In money, you've got 3 options. If you need to have more money in the bank, you can either make more money, you can spend less money, or you can do both. Well, you can go and borrow money, I guess. But so that's your options. You either have to make more money, go get another job, a second job or third job, or get a job that pays more, or you've got to cut down on your expenditures, or do both. With weight loss, it's the same thing. You got 3 options according to Duke University. You can eat less calories, but on that rice diet, you're still, you're probably pretty well there. Now, Dr. Agatha, she had another option, and I'll share with you in a minute. Well, let me go ahead and share it now. Dr. Agatha says, well, you can just go fast a couple days. Try 3, 4 days, 5 days, and just fast. You'll lose some weight. and you cut down the calories even more. Or as Duke said, you need to walk instead of 3 miles, 5 miles. The other option is increased calorie burn, and that's through exercise. Or you can do both. So what do I do when I work with people with weight loss? First, we want to look at their overall health. Is there health conditions? Do they have cardiac issues? You've got to look at the body as a whole. We talked about that last night as we looked at making a new lifestyle program. What are all the health problems that you're having? And so we want to go in this smart. We want to, whether we're using the BMI or the percent body fat, we want to look at a target of where we want to get sometime. And sometimes you want to take incremental goals. Like when I go and drive, I don't like to drive. It's a waste of time. There's stuff I could be doing, and I'm just sitting there doing this. There's a lot more stuff I can get done than just doing that. And so I play games with myself like, okay, we're at mile marker 35, or now mile marker 75. I keep games like that. And so what you can do is say, okay, I want to lose X amount of weight between now and here in a certain amount of time. That's reasonable and obtainable. And then if you don't meet that, figure out why you didn't meet that. Does that make sense? Was it because I need to change the diet more? Do I need to increase the exercise more, or both? There's a guy by the name of Franklin Cobos. He came from Loma Linda to look at our program. And we were only weighing people twice a week, Mondays and Thursdays. And he said, well, you got to weigh people daily. And I said, why? He said, because you could go several days and not know, and you just missed it. And you've only got patients for 18 days. You got to weigh them daily. And he was right. If you haven't lost weight in a day or two, figure out what you're going to do. Do you need to skip a day of eating? Do you need to go from 5 miles to 8 miles? Whatever is reasonable and attainable to you. Because Dr. Thrash said to get off that stair, you've got to either increase the calorie burn or you've got to reduce the calories, and that can drop you off that next step. And sometimes that's what you have to do when you get stuck at a certain area. So here's the program we use. It's kind of like what we talked about last night. And I try to figure out what is a person willing to do. Juicing is a great way of doing it. Do the fat, sick, and nearly dead. Great program. You're getting nutrition. Juicing works very, very well. And I've had people lose great on it. I had one guy, he lost 80 pounds in 4 or 5 months. But this guy was a big guy. I had a guy come in one time, he was 572 pounds. He lost 40 pounds in 30 days, but he had a lot of water. He had a lot, it's a big difference than if you were, say, 200 pounds and lose that amount. So juicing works extremely well. Go to Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead, and it'll show you a juicing program. And I find that you get adequate nutrition. And did I talk about University of Alabama last night on juicing? Did I talk about that? Okay. So the all that weren't here last night, UAB, for the cardiac patients who are really terrible, awful, they will have them juice for 70 days in critical cardiac situation, heart failure. And it's plenty of nutrition to juice for 70 days. So that's one option, is do the juicing. Another option is to eat just raw. Raw is a great way to do. There's the guy, Covey, Dr. Covey out in Arizona. You can watch Simply Raw on YouTube. And he just has his patients eat raw for breakfast, raw for dinner, raw for supper. But if you want to lose the fastest, eat breakfast, burns calories, increases metabolism. Eat dinner, the noon meal, burns calories, and increases the metabolism. But when you eat after 3 o'clock, according to Dr. Koop, it doesn't increase the metabolism. And when you eat in the evening, you're less prone to lose weight. So you're better off to eat breakfast and dinner. And again, as I said last night, Dr. Koop, if you really need to lose weight, he only fed you breakfast. That's it. He only ate 1 meal a day, and that was breakfast. I have people tell me I only eat 1 meal a day. Well, when do you eat it? They eat all day long. They're like cows. They just graze all day long. That's not 1 meal. But breakfast, you can do that. You can do the Duke diet. And the Duke diet, I really like it. John McDougall says it's one of the best diets out there, especially cardiovascular, but it's a great program for weight loss. And we've helped many, many, many people lose weight doing the Duke diet. And that's the 3 fruits and 1 cup of brown rice. For breakfast, a big salad, 1 cup of brown rice, but don't eat supper. If you have to have supper, do a V8, but don't do anything else. Plenty of nutrition there. I mentioned last night, my dad went almost 6 years on that diet, and to keep him going where he's in such cardiac issues, but he lived that long on that diet. So it is sustainable. I've met people at Duke that have been on it for a long time, and it is healthy. And if it wasn't healthy, Duke wouldn't be doing it. They just wouldn't be doing it. And they've been doing it since the 1930s. That's the most aggressive. I like being aggressive. Yes, you can do a plant-based diet where you use a plant-based diet for breakfast, a plant-based diet for dinner, but I encourage you not to do supper. Be careful with oils, because oils, it's hard to lose weight using oil. Be careful with dairy as fat. Be careful with meat. You know what they taught us at Cornell? They taught us that milk is made for calves to gain weight quickly. The average calf is supposed to double its weight in 90 days. And the formula that the cow gives the calf to do that is milk. So milk, what we're doing when we're using dairy is we're taking calf formula to put on weight. And if you're wanting to lose weight, don't use a weight gain formula when you're trying to lose weight. But the most aggressive is the diet I mentioned earlier. And some people say, that's too boring for me. Well, mix it up. When you get up for breakfast, say what I want for breakfast. You could do juicing for breakfast. You could do the Duke diet for dinner. And for supper, you can fast or do a V8 juice. You can play around and use those different ones, or you may just eat raw. But I find that diet, one, is nutritious. It's not going to cause organ failure or any problems there. It's been proven by Duke. It's been proven by University of Alabama at Birmingham. It's been proven by Dr. Cousins' clinic out in Arizona. So they've been out there a while, very proven scientifically. And that diet works well. The next one is water. We're told when we're dehydrated, it's harder to lose weight. When we're dehydrated, the hypothalamus says we're in a drought and we retain fluids. And so when we drink adequate water, then what happens is we then let the fluids go. How much does this weigh right here? How much? She's right. A pound. A pint is a pound, as the world is round. And so fluids, extra fluids does weigh. And we're told that when we retain fluids, then that's weight. So by drinking adequate water, we can get rid of excess fluids. If we are dehydrated, we don't get rid of those fluids as effectively. Another problem with it is when we are thirsty, there are brains that misinterpret that for hunger. And so we think we're hungry, but we're really thirsty. Another thing you can do is before the mealtime, say 30 minutes, up to 30 minutes before, make sure you have plenty of hydration. Then when you go into that eating, you're not wanting as much food. And then when you do fasting, especially if you fast for supper, drink a bunch of water. Keep well hydrated, and it will help to keep you full. The next one is exercise. Exercise burns calories. Just as that doctor at Duke says, Henry, you've been doing 5 miles. I want 8 miles today. That's if you can. Now, if you go to Duke, Duke is having you exercise 4 times a day. That is not always within your work schedule, reasonable and obtainable. If it is, it's the best that I'm finding. But at least do it once or twice a day. Exercise is great to burn off calories. And what if you're not able to? You know somebody that's in a wheelchair. You know a person that has a bad hip. You know a person that can't get out and walk. Well, there's some other tools out there. For knee problems, we have patients use the bicycle, stationary bicycle. Excellent choice on knee issues. There's all kinds of tools that you can use. There's the type that you can sit and, what do they call those things that you roll your feet at or put it on the desk? And I forgot what they call it. We used to have those. Or let's say we'd have people who just plumb couldn't do anything. Well, here's what we'd have them to do. Now, we're not clapping in church, but I want to show you something. Take your hands and clap them like this. Stop. Do it again. Stop. Do you feel the tingling? That's microcirculation. And that actually helps as an exercise. We have our patients in wheelchairs clapping their hands. You can try this one, y'all. Rub your ears really good. I mean, real good. Rub good and hard. You feel that? It gets circulation going. You can pat your arms. You can take a newspaper, roll it up, and pat it on yourself. That gets circulation going. You don't have to just sit there and do nothing. And so get that circulation going. That can help significantly. Look at the Asians. The Asians are good at this. It is not uncommon, I'm told, in China for an Asian man for as much as 30 minutes in the morning doing this to his head, massaging his head, gets that circulation going for the body. So there's various ways that you can look at your exercise program, but exercise is huge. One of my favorite tools for exercising is a rebounder. How many of y'all remember Harold Cherney? Remember Cherney? He was at Eden Valley. And he and I went out to a convention in California, and he convinced me to get 3 rebounders for our gym. We already had one, but it was a Montgomery Ward's one. And I just wasn't impressed with it. And he told me it wasn't any good. And so he said, you need this and get 3 of them. So I trusted the man, very good friend of mine. And so I got it. We got them in. I put patients on it. The next day, after they were on it, they all were sick with flu-like symptoms. So I called up Cherney. I said, Cherney, what's wrong with these people? They're all sick with flu-like symptoms. Well, if you know Cherney, who was a jolly man, he started laughing. And I said, Cherney, why are you laughing? He goes, what did you do? I said, 15 minutes BID, twice a day. He just laughed more. Why are you laughing, Cherney? He said, I did the same thing. He said, those people coming to you are so sedentary, so clogged up. And he says, you just kicked on their pumps full. See, did you know that when you jump on a mini trampoline, a rebounder, you kick on the lymphatic flow 10-fold? And so now you're just pumping that waste on that person who was sedative into their liver, and the liver's going, wait a minute. And he says, here's what you do. You won't have no more problems. And I haven't had any more problems. That was probably 2001. I've never had a problem since. So it's been over 20 years. He says, do 5 minutes, 3 times a day. 5 minutes, 3 times a day for a week. Then go to 10 minutes, 3 times a day. If you want to go up, you can after that. Turn them pumps on slow. Get that going. But a mini trampoline is phenomenal. And the increasing lymphatic flow, that's the sewer system. It increases cardiac flow, which is important. We talked about last night that the flow of the blood is very important. Increases the immune system. When you bounce on a mini trampoline for 5 minutes, it increases the white count 3-fold. That's 300%. So for cancer folks, if they're able to do it, I have them bounce on a mini trampoline every waking hour for 5 minutes. And so it maintains that 300% increase in white count. And that can help to fight cancer. Keep the lymphatic system clean. It's interesting. As you look at the herbs that are anti-cancer, Padiarco, burdock root, chaparral, calendula, not only are they cancer killers, they're also blood purifiers. And guess what they also do? They help to clean the lymphatic system. Lymphatic system is important for cleaning with cancer. And the mini trampoline will do that. The mini trampoline also works great as a to help with balance. As we get older, balance is an issue. I was talking to a doctor friend of mine this week, and he said, Walt, I'm seeing so many people post-COVID having balance issues. I said, I am too. Mini trampoline is a great tool for helping with balance. We bought a machine. It was like $75,000. This was back in the 90s in PT, and it was called the Balance Master, and it helped. And you can get a lot of similar benefits jumping on a mini trampoline. Get one with a bar, and you can even be more aggressive with it. But a mini trampoline is a great tool to use for helping you to lose weight. There's other exercises. The last one I look at, or the second to the last one I look at, is sleep. And research shows that a person who gets rest is more prone to have weight loss. I think it was in what we talked about earlier today. Maybe it wasn't in that one, but they found that a person who has sleep deprivation is more prone to gain weight. And that was research again at Harvard. You see, I quote Harvard a lot. And someone says, what book do you get? I do read books, but also I go to Harvard, I go to Mayo, I go to Hopkins, I go to Cleveland Clinic, I go to Duke, and I go to NIH, and I see what's the new research coming out. Mayo is a great tool for lifestyle medicine. It really is. I find a lot of things from Mayo that's lifestyle approach. And so you find these things there. And they say for weight loss, sleep deprivation affects weight loss. So we need to get our sleep. Being asleep by 9 o'clock helps with that. And so getting rest is something we would do to help our patients have weight loss. And the most important is what? Trusting God. That's a key. Yes, Mary Lou? Yes. With weight loss. Yes. Okay. So Mary Lou's saying, what are things could cause a problem? Could there be medications? Yeah, there could be medications. So you want to look at the meds the person's taking. Could there be meds that they're taking that can cause them to gain weight? Well, if that's so, why are they taking that medicine? First thing you can look at, can they go to a different medication that doesn't have that side effect? Or why are they taking that medicine? Is that problem? Can we fix that problem? A lot of times you can. Dr. John Kelly, who knows John Kelly? Great guy. He was at Loma Linda when we were at a conference in New York and speaking to medical folks. And John told these medical physicians out of New York City, he said over 80% of the patients on the floor at Loma Linda, now on the floor means just the floor, not in units. He says we can fix them in lifestyle medicine at, say, a Uchee Pine. They don't have to be, he said, at Loma Linda. So a lot of those things people are taking those meds for could be fixed by lifestyle. And then when the problem's taken care of, you then don't have to have the medication. And then as Mary Lou's talking about, hormones. Hormones can be an issue. And so what do we do for hormones? Let's answer that question real quick for female hormones. The best thing I found for female hormones is wild yam cream. Barbara O'Neill talks a lot about wild yam cream. I first looked at progesterone cream by Dr. Lee out of California, but then we found one of Lee's associates, Cynthia Johnson, found that wild yam cream works better because it stabilizes progesterone. When you stabilize progesterone, you stabilize estrogen. And by doing anywhere between a half to 1 teaspoon twice a day, 1/2 to a teaspoon twice a day, significantly helps stabilizing female hormones. And we have gals in their teens that are having a lot of period issues as they're young girls to ladies in their 90s using wild yam cream. If the person still is mincing, still has a period, they stop at day 1 for 7 days and restart. If they have 2 periods a month, they only stop for the first one. The second thing we do is because blown adrenals affects hormones, and there's a lot of blown adrenals out there because of stress. So to help blown adrenals, we found a great tool is stinging nettle. Take a quart of water, bring it to a boil, plumb turn it off, add a 1/4 of a cup of stinging nettle, or we call it stinging nettle, and put that in there and let it sit overnight, strain it, drink it throughout the day. I was at the herb cabinet one day at work, and this lady comes in and she says, I need some stinging nettle. And I said, I think I'm out. Let me check. So I get over and I squat down on the floor and I look and I said, I'm plumb out. She says, you better get that in quick. She said, Cotton County's going to make national news again. And I said, why? She says, as many women as you and Mary Lou got on that stuff for women's hormones, we're going to make national news again. It really helps with hormones, stinging nettle. It is said that stinging nettle is possibly the most nutritious of the herbs in North America. We use it for a number of things, but that's one, female hormones. It's a great source of calcium if you're having bone density issues, but also great for allergies. The other third thing that we use is flaxseed, 2 to 3 tablespoons based on stress, acuity of stress. More stress, more flaxseed, but 2 to 3 tablespoons twice a day, grind, eat within 15 minutes of grinding. Flaxseed, you got to grind it. It go through you like birdseed. Now, you can put flaxseed unground in a colon formula, and that slimy stuff that y'all women get off of it for egg replacer, well, that slimy stuff is really good for healing, say, ulcerative colitis, Crohn's, or whatever, IBS. But you definitely don't want that if they have problems with diverticulosis. You can get diverticulitis. But you grind it. And when you grind it, you got to eat it within 15 minutes because of your chemicals in it. It's a phytoestrogen. It's got omega-3s. It's got tryptophan. Those oxidize very rapidly. And so you got to eat it within 15 minutes of grinding it. But those are the 3 things that we find really help with female hormones. Yes, the other laws of health that we talked about. You want to have good nutrition. You want to have rest, exercise, and all that. But that's what we find works best. Now, if the wild yam is not enough, you can put a little nitro to it, or NOS, as you call it, for cars, and that's by adding a little more Vitex. Vitex many times is in wild yam cream. Add some more Vitex, about 2 mLs of Vitex, and that can really help with helping the hormones. But stress is a big one. Stress will mess up women's hormones. So address the stress. So as we look at MAPI, we've set a plan. What's our mission? What are we planning on? We want to lose X amount of pounds in X amount of time, or various increments. It's got to be reasonable, obtainable. Here's our plan. We make the plan. Here's what the diet's going to be, the exercise, the water, the rest, prayer, whatever we need to do to make that happen. We then implement that plan. Then we evaluate that plan. Is it working? It may not be working like we were wanting, and we need to come back and readjust it. You've got to evaluate it. Come back, evaluate. In healthcare, we come in, we go in, and a patient has let's say they tore their arm on a bed rail. And so the nurse comes in, she assesses it. Okay, it seems to be a simple skin tear. Okay, what's my plan? She makes a plan. She's going to maybe put a little antibiotic ointment on there. She's going to put a a dressing on there. And so she made her plan, she implemented her plan, and then she's going to come back and check it every so often to see, is it healing okay? Is it getting infected? Is it healing okay? If it's not, then she goes back up again and assesses it, makes a new plan, implements the new plan, evaluates, and it keeps going round and round and round. And that's how you use that for weight loss. Any other questions on weight loss? There's a word I wrote somebody the other day, and I use this word, and I used the word contiguous. Contiguous. And he wrote back and he says, do you mean continuous? I said, no, contiguous. And what is contiguous? Contiguous is where it's constant every day. Yes. Depends on how big the person is. The bigger the person, like that guy was 572 pounds, who lost 40 pounds in 1 month, that wasn't a problem at all. If you lost 40 pounds in 1 month, that'd be way too much. And so it depends on the bigger they are. So the average person, let's say, weighed 200 pounds. It's not at all a problem if that person lost, say 10 to 20 pounds in 1 month. It's gonna taper off though, because they're going to start losing less and less and less as they get closer to what their goal is. Yeah, but that exercise importance to tighten those muscles, that skin, and to be healthy there. Any other? What about? And oh, thank you. That reminded me of something. So what do you do when you get there? What do you do when you get there? Nutrition-wise, I encourage you to go to Cornell University, to Dr. T. Colin Campbell's diet. And that's what you had here today. Y'all had Dr. T. Colin Campbell's diet. And if you don't know how to do that, this church has cooking schools to teach how to do T. Colin Campbell's diet. It's a great program. I find it is the healthiest diet in the world. Cornell University found that. Cambridge University found that. What is it? It's a whole food, plant-based diet with variety. And variety is huge because some people just eat same old all the time. And we need a variety of food. Now, how was the food today? Did it taste good? There's a big variety. And so you don't want to eat the same thing all the time. And so in these cooking classes, they'll teach you here, they might do a class on healthy smoothies. They might have a class on healthy breakfasts and healthy dinners and healthy Thanksgiving meals and healthy Christmas meals and, healthy holiday meals, or healthy picnics, or maybe even a class on how to go out and shop. That's a big class. And so the cooking classes, y'all are visiting a church that they do a lot of cooking schools here. And so that's important, is to have classes, and that's what is supposed to happen. And so you want that Cornell diet, which is a whole food, plant-based. Now, I can go to a motel and go out and, they have breakfasts, and you go out there and they got a plant-based product. They've got Fruit Loops out there. And Fruit Loops are plant-based. Do you know, when we got married on Friday. Mary Lou wanted to get married like Adam and Eve. And so we got married on Friday. Not that many people come on Fridays as well as Sundays. So we went, and so we went to Ella, Georgia as our first stop. And then went to Callaway Gardens, and then we went on down to St. Petersburg. And so she liked different things, so we went to different things. But my first meal she made me, married. You want to guess what it was? Fruit Loops. That's what I had for supper that night. I loved Fruit Loops, but we didn't know this back then. We're ignorant. And so she fixed me Fruit Loops, and she had a cucumber sandwich. That was our first meal. Fruit Loops are plant-based, but what's the problem? It's not whole food plant-based. And so you want to, whole food means it doesn't have refined sugars in it, or refined grains in it because they're just not as healthy for us. And then variety is really important. But that is the diet that we find that we do best. Not a lot of oil, just a little bit of oil. Oil, you gain weight on it. Dairy, what did we just learn that dairy is? It's a weight gain program for calves, and we're not even calves. And so we don't want that. We learned last night that dairy is the most significant chemical carcinogen ever discovered, according to Cornell University. That blew my mind. Work coming up on a dairy. Dairy is the most significant chemical carcinogen ever discovered. That's not good. We learned at Cornell, they would take cancer cells and turn them off, breast cancer, turn it on, turn it off, turn it on, turn it off by giving dairy, taking away dairy, giving dairy, taking away dairy. Amazing research that Campbell did while at Cornell. And then what you continue the exercise program. Exercise, you can't just plumb stop exercise because remember you got three options. Control the calories. So you now want to control the calories, but healthy calories. Then you want to maintain the calorie burn by good exercise or do both, which you want to do both. Drinking the adequate water so you don't get back in the same problem. See, if I have we talked about this last night. I'm rubbing my arm with a piece of sandpaper and it takes the hide off of it. Right? Is it not?
Yeah.
And Mary Lou comes up and puts medicine on it and she leaves and I go rubbing it again. And then it ain't going to heal till what? I stop the cause. So if you get weight gain, you got to figure out why did you get weight gain? It's kind of like if I went outside and took a shower this morning, went outside and I did not just in my bare feet and wet head, I might get sick. And then I go and take something for the sickness and I go do it again, I'm probably going to get sick again. And so you want to find out what caused us to gain weight and then not do it again. So that's important. What are the questions? Yes.
You said avocado was good for the brain, but you can turn that in oil and how do you balance that?
Yes. So when we are, say, reversing diabetes, there's three major causes to diabetes, and one of them is weight gain for it. Also is fat that clogs the insulin receptors, and avocado is a fat, so we don't use any avocados for that. And I don't use avocados when I'm in the weight loss mode. I use avocados if a person's trying to gain weight. I use avocados and olives. But in this time frame, I don't use the avocados and olives because I'm trying to get that down and then in moderation every once in a while. Yes.
The diet, you end up in your morning with the rice, you do the porridge. You know, you grind it and then cook it.
Okay. Let me give you Mary Lou's recipe. Y'all want Mary Lou's recipe? I'll give you Mary Lou's recipe. Can I give him your recipe? If she wasn't here, I'd still give it to you. So I give it all over the place. Let's see here. I'll find it here. Let's see here. If you went to Duke, you would only get brown rice, period. No salt, no nothing else. Okay, here's Mary Lou's brown rice recipe. It's delicious. 1 cup of brown rice, soak overnight. 1 cup, soak overnight. In the morning, wash it good. Add 2.5 cups of water. Add 1/4 of a teaspoon of turmeric. 1/4 of a cup of sliced green onions. 1/4 of a cup of chopped cilantro. Cook in the rice cooker is designated on a setting on the cooker or on top of the stove for approximately 40 minutes. Now, sometimes she'll stick it in the oven and bake it in the oven. But in the weight loss program or the program that we're using the Duke diet, that's the recipe that she would use. Now, sometimes it gets boring. So what you do for that is again, for breakfast, you can do 3 servings of fruit. Well, Dr. Agatha taught me to make banana milk. That's 1 ripe banana, 1 ripe banana, 3 ounces of water, and a dash of vanilla extract. Blend it up, but not till it's foamy, but blend it up. And then that serving of fruit, you can now pour on top of your rice, and now you got kind of like a rice pudding. And it tastes good. It does. Now, if you want to splurge, you can make a milkshake on this program, on the Duke program. And what it is you take 2 ripe bananas. That's what one of the spots on it. Don't ever do a green banana, because there's a chemical in green bananas that actually affect digestion to the negative. So anyway, 2 ripe bananas, 3 ounces of water, 5 ice cubes, and a dash of vanilla, and blend it up. And you've got you a banana milkshake, and it's really good. That's how Dr. Thrash first taught me. And then she later taught me that was a little boring. She says, add you some more into it, honey. She says, just put you some more in there. She says, you can add some strawberries, or you can put some blueberries. Now that's your 3rd serving. Put that in, blend it up, and you have a blueberry banana milkshake. It's still your 3 servings of fruit. Isn't that cool?
Yep.
So there's some options you can do there. Yes.
In dried herbs, leaves, there doesn't need to be on the part. If you want to use the recipe is cilantro.
Oh,
So could you use parsley or any other, but it doesn't have to be raw or could it be dried?
let me ask Mary Lou on that one. She's better at cooking from a cooking standpoint.
Same thing for salad, but it be used. Possibly yeast flakes, could that be used?
Okay, so in the salad for the dinner meal, whatever vegetable that's raw, you can eat it. That's onions and radishes and you could use some dried onion, but you don't want anything sodium wise. If the onion powder has salt in it, and I don't know if it does, cooking is not my forte. My grandma and mother taught me how to cook Southern, and that's all I know how to cook. And when we got married and we started eating healthy, she knows that stuff. So if it's got salt, no, but if it's just seasoned that's dried, that should be fine. Yes. Good question. Could you run into sodium issues? On juicing, yes. On juicing, yes. But I figured out, I called a friend of mine, Danny Vera. I said, Danny, some people, it's rare, but some people, when we're doing the 60-day juice fast, we start seeing a drop in sodium. He said, how much celery are you using, Walt? I said, 2 sticks per drink. He goes, go to 4 sticks per drink and you'll be fine. And I found that true. So if anybody does a long-term juice, put your 4 sticks of celery in there and you'll be fine on your sodium. Duke monitored the labs on everybody every week. It wasn't a big issue on the sodium, but if you do have some sodium issues, you can add some sodium, but we don't normally see it. Because you're having a lot of variety of vegetables, especially if you're putting celery in there, which celery is a good source of salt. Now, what if you have gout? Gout can cause problems, or let me say, brown rice can exacerbate gout. So you can do quinoa. Quinoa will be fine. You can go to quinoa. Or for variety, you may want to use quinoa. It works good. What other questions? Yes?
Ways to lower blood pressure.
Okay, so lowering high blood pressure. Again, you want to find out the root cause. Stress is number 1. So if a person has a lot of stress, use what we talked about in stress to lower the stress. And we talked about the physiology there. Number 2 is dehydration. When a person's dehydrated, the blood is thicker and it's stickier. When a person's dehydrated, the brain doesn't have as much water. So they're more prone to stress. When you're dehydrated, the kidneys don't work as well. And the kidneys are the switches to the blood pressure. Kidneys got to have adequate water flow to run right. It's like a dam. You got to have plenty of water going through them turbines to produce electricity. So for dehydration, we can see hypertension because the kidneys aren't working as well, and you can then have hypertension. There's another thing called conductivity. Conductivity, and this is pretty cool. When a person, our body has electricity. We measure it in EKGs or whatever. So there's two big things that affect our conductivity. Let's go back to chemistry class. You have the professor brings out a flask and he puts distilled water in the flask. He then takes a light bulb, and y'all remember this in chemistry class, I'm sure, plugs it in, and on the hot side, he sticks it in the distilled water. Remember that? The light does not go on. He then starts pouring salt in the flask. The more salt he puts in, the brighter the light bulb gets. Then he stops and he starts pouring distilled water back in. And now the light bulb starts getting dimmer because of the salinity of the water. The more minerals there are, the more the electrons move. Well, they found our bodies the same way. And what happens is it's measured by conductivity. There's tests that you can do to see what your conductivity is. And they found that water affects your conductivity in the same way as it does there. Sodium affects it in the same way. Minerals do. So we look at when a person has a high conductivity, they're more prone to hypertension. So dehydration would cause there to be a higher salinity, and more salt causes the salinity to go up. And so the conductivity to go up. And so that higher conductivity can cause hypertension. Number 3 is ideal body weight. A lot of research on ideal body weight. Number 4 is kidney function. Looking at, is a person having renal issues? And again, kidneys are the switches for the blood pressure. Number 5 is, what's their sodium intake? Are they doing Morton's? Are they doing, say, Celtic, or better yet, Himalayan pink salt for that issue? For the conductivity, I'm told that the Himalayan's better than even the Celtic. So it's better to do, if you're having problems with blood pressure, it's better to do that than the little girl with an umbrella. And so that's going to run the blood pressure up more so. I'd go no salt. I like going no added salt at first, and then see if you can get it down, then see if you can manage it with the Himalayan or the Celtic. The next one would be clogged arteries, and that's atherosclerosis. And it's very simple, hydraulics. If you go from an 1.5-inch pipe down to a 3/4 pipe, the pressure is going to go up. Just like when you wash your car, you're going to put a smaller nozzle on it, it's going to run the pressure up. So when we shrink those vessels down with atherosclerosis, you're going to increase blood pressure. So you've got to get rid of the atherosclerosis. How do you do that? Well, the best way to get rid of atherosclerosis is diet. Cleveland Clinic has proved that we can reverse atherosclerosis, plumb reverse it through Dr. Esselstyn by that plant-based diet that has no oil. You can also use something called lecithin granules. I had a lady come in to Boca Raton with 75% occlusion. She's from New York. And in 2 months, she went to Boca Raton at the mid-20s by doing a tablespoon twice a day of lecithin granules. I've now learned that you can do 3 times a day, but lecithin granules is very good to work as it. What it does is it dissolves the plaque. But then why is the plaque there? Is it because you have a high CRP? And why do you have a high CRP? You could have a high CRP because you have sleep deprivation. You could have a high CRP because you have gum disease. You could have a high CRP a number of reasons. And so you want to get to that root cause. And then the next one is for hypertension, is you want to see if you have arteriosclerosis, and it's hardening of the arteries. And basically, if you have a pipe that every time the pump pumps, it expands, your internal pressure is not going to go up as high as if you have a rigid pipe, which maintains that. And so as we get hardening of the arteries, the pressure is going to go up because you don't have expansion. And so you want to address the arteriosclerosis. But the best way I found to do that is address the clogged arteries, the atherosclerosis. And then, is there a heart issue going on? And the best thing I found for that is hawthorn berry. Hawthorn berry, I have a friend, he's a physician in our area. He doesn't practice any of this kind of stuff. He just found out that hawthorn berry works better than blood pressure meds, works like 3 different types of blood pressure meds. And hawthorn berry is an herb that works great on bringing blood pressure down. It has a half-life. Well, I mean, it works for about 4 hours. And so you can do it 4 times a day. Hawthorn berry is a great tool for the heart muscle, for the electrical system, for the blood pressure. And there's a lot of research on hawthorn berry. You can do an extract, you can do the capsules, which is a powderized berry, or the extract is an extract of the berries, or you can do a tea. Another one good is, if you're looking for a tea, is hibiscus. Hibiscus is really good for hypertension. But I try to get to the root cause, fix that root cause, and then you don't have to use the hawthorn, you don't have to use the hibiscus. Any other questions? Yes.
Are there any resources that are good reference for like the minerals, like you were talking about the magnesium and the copper and the relationship there and how to balance it?
The magnesium and the copper.
Like
the zinc and the copper?
Yeah, the zinc and the copper and the magnesium.
Yeah, I would go to NIH. That's usually where I go there, is I go to National Institute of Health. I find a lot of research in NIH, and that's where I'll go for that. Mm-hmm. If you're looking for a good resource on herbs, you know what the PDR is, Physician's Desk Reference. Well, they make a PDR for herbal medicine. It's the same methodology. It's just, instead of telling you what the doses are for prednisone, what's the contraindications, what's the side effects, what's all that, they have one on herbal medicine, and it will tell you on chamomile, what's the dosing, is there any herbs it could react with, is there any medications it can react with, the same way, and it's on herbs. It's a great tool to use. I encourage people to get that. It's the PDR for herbal medicine. If you're going to use herbs, use them smart, because there's some herbs that you have to be cautious with. Such in Asia, there's an herb that girls will use. They'll go up in the mountains and they will use it for an abortion, which I don't support. But if it's been a dry season, it's more potent, and it'll kill not only the baby but the mother too. There's herbs that we use. We just have to read about it, and you're generally safe. But you got to do your due diligence and research. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am. For what? Oh, low bone density. Yes, on low bone density. Number one is you got to make sure you got enough calcium in the blood. Now, your best source of calcium, I like green leafy vegetables. Read the book Death by Calcium. Interesting book. Totally changed my perspective on calcium, on supplementation. I like the if you can do the green leafy vegetables, that's your best source. Your nettle, which is another green leafy vegetable, good source of calcium. So you've got to have calcium in the blood. Then you've got to take the calcium out of the blood. So by mouth, it gets in the blood. Then you got to take it out of the blood, and vitamin D helps there. And so you want to see what your blood level vitamin D is. And I find that folks do best with a vitamin D level around 100 at the top. The labs will tell you 30 to 100 or 30 to 99, depending on which lab. So 100 is within range. And so be close to that 100, enough vitamin D to do its job there. Then NASA found the best way to drive it into the bones. When you go to space, you have bone density loss because of weightlessness. And NASA found the best tool for that. And NASA can afford anything they want to for the astronauts. And so they use what's called a mini trampoline. And so they have them bounce on that. And so mini trampolines not only are going to increase your white count, it's not only going to increase your immune system, it's not only going to increase that lymphatic flow, but it's going to increase your bone density because it's driving that calcium into the bones with weight bearing, which you have a negative G situation there. And when you bounce on a mini trampoline, there's a lady who actually I just talked to her last week. Do you remember Jackie LaLanne? She was one of the Jackie LaLanne girls from the 60s. And she taught me when you bounce, Jackie LaLanne taught her when you bounce on it, when you're bouncing, you don't go like this, you push down. And that helps in that bone density, so not to build it even better. And the fourth thing I look at is Dr. Lee's research out of California. I forgot, what was Lee's first name? Anybody remember? What? John Lee, yes. He found that there's a relationship between estrogen and bone density and progesterone and bone density. He mostly looked at estrogen. Cynthia Johnson looked at progesterone and estrogen on bone density. And so you want to make sure your female hormones are where they need to be. And we see osteoporosis totally reversed. Osteopenia totally reversed. It's amazing. I think there's another one I'm thinking of, but we'll go. Any other questions? Pardon? Yes, because stress can raise CRP. Well, wait a minute. No, let me back up. It can raise plaque, but not, to my knowledge, cholesterol. How do we raise cholesterol? Cholesterol can be raised by eating cholesterol. And what has cholesterol in it? Anything that has a mama has cholesterol in it. We can also increase LDL by lowering the HDL. And if we eat too much cashews, like if you eat cashew gravy, cashew cheese, cashew milk, cashew a lot, it actually lowers the HDL. Cashews are fine in moderation every once in a while, but there are some diets that people use cashew every day, and cashew every day can lower HDL. And I found that out. And later I read it, but I found it ourselves. And what happened is our HDLs were lower than other lifestyle centers in our program. Why did they go down? I expected them to go down some, but not as much. It's going to go down as the total cholesterols are coming down. But why did they dump so much? Well, finally, we did a lot of cashew stuff in our dietary department. Why? We made it taste good. It's richer. It's great. Mary Lou uses cashews. But we used it every day. So and the other lifestyle centers were not. So we said, okay, let's discontinue that. Let's use almonds or something. Boom, very next lifestyle program. HDLs were right similar to the other lifestyle programs. About 6 months later, I noticed in the lab work, HDLs started dropping. So I went, after a couple of lifestyle sessions, I went back to dietary and I said, are you doing cashew stuff again? And it was like a kid with her hand in a cookie jar. How did you know? I said, the labs told me. And there's all kinds of excuses. Tastes better and whatever. I said, I agree, but we can't maintain moderation. Therefore, we have to have none. So we're not going to do it. And boom, right back up, our HDLs went. So your HDLs are like cops, policemen. And so they go out and get the bad guys, the LDL, put handcuffs on them, take them to jail. And so if you don't have enough policemen, you can't get rid of the bad guys. So the more HDL you have, the better job you get rid of the LDL, and it helps to lower the LDL. The other thing that he's a cardiologist, Dr. William Davis, and he started researching this in 1990. And he found that there is a food product that we eat that raises LDL. And it's non-dairy. And that is the American wheat, the 42 chromosome wheat, not the 16 or 14 chromosome wheat, but the 42 chromosome wheat. And he's a cardiologist. So that will raise cholesterol. So yes, the animal products, eating too many cashews can affect there, and eating the American wheat, whether it's a cracker, whether it's pasta, whether it's bread, whatever. How do you lower the cholesterol? Best things, don't eat it. My cholesterol was 288, dropped it down to 144 when I quit doing dairy. I'd already given up meat. So let's say you're already a total vegetarian. How do you lower it? Cholesterol Pro is a good product by now. It's a fruit. You do 2 capsules twice a day in the morning, in the evening for the first month, and you do capsule twice a day. Works quite well. There is red yeast rice, but red yeast rice is a natural statin. And because it's a natural statin, even it's still a statin, you've got to take CoQ10 because statins lower CoQ10. Even the red yeast rice will lower CoQ10. So you've got to add back in CoQ10 with red yeast rice.